Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I do the same thing all the time, right? I mean, I kind of feel like I have to because I've been doing that for a good couple of years now. Welcome. Yeah, welcome here to the Everything MSP webinar event. Got my good friend, Amelia from ID Agent. How you doing today, Amelia?
I am doing fantastic. It's another busy day in the channel. As soon as we get done here, I'm hopping on a jet plane, going to an ASCII event, another channel event. So
awesome. I think at this point, you probably deserve your own private plane, your own private jet.
You know what? I keep telling Fred that. He disagrees, but you know.
I mean, we call it Amelia Air.
Ooh, that's a great idea.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like it. You can put your face on the plane, and yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Absolutely.
So, things to shoot for, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. So I'm taking investors now, early bird investment if you want to get in on Amelia Air. So.
Exactly. That is so awesome. Amelia Air. I think you need to register that domain right away, ameliaair.com. I would jump on that one. And but yeah, today we're here to talk about the evolution of cybercrime. And are you ready for what's next? That's scary. I mean, what is next? You know, that's the $1 million question. We've been talking a lot about that on our calls and talking about how the fact that we can do so much to protect our clients, but we just never know what's going to happen next. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be stopping and taking a good look at the landscape and identifying, you know, what those trends are, what's been happening, you know, from a trend perspective, and what are the new things that are jumping out and going to be causing havoc across small and medium-sized companies all over the world. And it's a nonstop thing, right?
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting that you point that out because after I, put together kind of this session and the things I wanted to talk about it, I was thinking about that. And I'm like, oh, are you ready for what's next? I mean, it's kind of a rhetorical question to your point, right? Because we can still be as prepared as much as we think we are, but that's what cyber criminals do day in and day out. We can only ever be reactionary, right? Because we're behind what they're going to do.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it is kind of a rhetorical question, but analyzing, looking at, kind of the evolution, right? Where we are, how things have progressed can also help us be as prepared as possible. So, and today's session, what I wanted to talk to you about, Dan, and to the eMSP audience is the things that we identified. And when I say we, ID Agent, we recently published this year's Year in Breach report, which does just that. It takes a look at the year in review, cybercrime, and based on that, we've and put together kind of the things that you should be looking at for keeping your eyes on the horizon for it, and that's going to help us all be better prepared for what could potentially be next. So that's what I wanted to talk about, and I just. You know me, Dan, and I would always rather just sit and chit chat with you. But this session, I am going to do a little bit of death by PowerPoint. I promise it won't be painful. But the reason I'm doing that is because in the report, there's some really great stats and really great charts and things that I wanted to share with everyone. And as good as I am at my job, I really can't remember everything. So.
There's so much to know.
I'm gonna need some visual aids for this one.
and the beauty is, when you take a look at all these stats, stats are what kind of give that jolt to people to capture their attention. We have to strike a chord with our clients and prospective clients, and those stats are the eye-opening things that does just that. And so it's critical that we leverage that information disseminate that to our audience, and just, it's not a scare tactic. It's an eye-opening reality of what's happening out there. And knowledge is power. And the more that we can leverage and use this knowledge, it makes us out in the field as we're out there trying to sell our wares. It makes us that expert that they look up to.
Yeah, it's no different than, reading a medical journal or a medical report on the statistics of pick a disease, or, anything, right? A health report, right? That's going to show you, right? These are the trends. These are the things that we're seeing. And, if it's a negative thing, then there's going to be things that you can do to protect against that, right? A high blood pressure, or, adult onset of diabetes, right? Or any of these things, right? So, maybe exactly, it's not about selling with fear. This is a reality, and these are what experts, in the field, researchers, those rooms, the think tank rooms of people, and in combination with law enforcement, FBI, cybercrime division, right, have put together. These are the trends. This is our reality. So,
Absolutely.
And you should absolutely share, these reports, share them with your clients, share them with your prospects, right? Like you said, knowledge is power, sharing the education. And at the end of the session, I'll drop the links to the report. I encourage everyone, go and download the report, share it with clients and prospects, anyone in your audience.
Absolutely. And I know I've said this quite a bit recently, but when we take a look at our industry, there is a low barrier to entry out there. Anybody can just automatically say, hey, I'm an MSP today. Becoming an MSP should be something that's earned, and that's through continued education, like you are all here today. And so I applaud everyone that's investing time into continued education, because the more that you learn, the more that you truly become that expert to those out there, and that differentiates you from others in your market. And that is what makes or breaks it. So bravo for that, and keep on learning, keep on keeping.
Yeah, absolutely, love it. All right, awesome. So I'll go ahead and dive in. And Dan, feel free to stop me at any point if there's anything that you want to add to. I'm sure you've got a wealth of information yourself, and anything that you have heard from the conversations that you've been having in your weekly, was it bi-weekly? No, twice a week. Twice a week. What's that word? Twice groups that, you meet up with so many people. You almost talk to as many people as I do. So,
right.
Yeah.
Without flying, though.
Without flying, that's true. That's true. So we're going to skip this because, hopefully everybody knows who I am. If you don't, Amelia Paro, ID agent, been with ID agent for a while, was actually a client of ID agent at my MSP before I joined ID agent to help other MSPs have the same success that I did. So connect with me on LinkedIn, send me an email. I'll leave you with my contact info at the end if you want. Feedback is appreciated. Comments, suggestions, or if you want to learn more about ID agent, that's always welcome too. So I love this slide. I thought it was really cool. This image
is awesome.
And really, so we started talking about the growth and the evolution of cybercrime, and especially in the last year. It seems like it's just getting, it's accelerating quicker and quicker every year. And we've seen some things that have kind of been around, right? Phishing attacks been around, but they're just keep getting more and more sophisticated. And it's, brand impersonation, ransomware, new strains of ransomware, cybercrime as a service. And now we've got nation state, right? So nation state has been in the news a lot too. And it's been in the news because they've kind of shifted to, targeting organizations outside the government space. So we're going to take a look at, some of the stats that we've gathered, some of the data and for those kind of major trends, and look at how that impacts us and what we can do, what we should focus on in the future. And look at how that impacts us and what we can.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's all right.
We had a little bit of I was double checking our chat out there, and all of a sudden it started playing you and while you were talking. So
Okay.
carry on.
Yes. You know what? It's funny. For as much as I talk, I really don't like the sound of my own voice. You know, it's painful for somebody who is a public speaker to have to watch ourselves in a
Right.
recording.
Exactly.
I just would rather ignore all the weird faces I make and how I talk with my hands. So.
Well, Jay Tipton had posted $50. That was his comment out on the Facebook, our live stream. And so apparently Jay is giving $50 out to anybody, and all you have to do is just send him your bank account or something like that. So,
okay, all right. Oh, here I thought he was going to be the first investor in Amelia Air. Man.
Yes. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we're going to just take a quick look at some of the trends that shape the risk landscape in 2021, and why we could talk about why we anticipate that they will continue to exert a strong influence on this year and in the years to come. So nation state cyber attacks, right? I mentioned that they've escalated. The shift now is on, outside the public sector. So it used to be something not only governments, defense contractors, and the military had to worry about. And, that's not the case anymore. And what makes it especially, why should we care, especially important to us as MSPs, is that now it is irrespective of industry or size of business, because we're also interconnected now through technology. Nation state threat actors have joined the bandwagon of other cyber criminals and realized that small businesses aren't going to have the same security as government and military and larger organizations, and that small businesses and businesses outside of the government, they are part of the supply chain. And so they have data, they have access to data, and so that they're becoming a much more lucrative target for that IP, that data, that being able to disrupt part of that supply chain, and attacking a small business that may be a direct supplier to a larger organization. So SMBs, just like enterprises, like I said, they handle sensitive data, and really they're becoming the stepping stones for cyber criminals, nation state threat actors whose end target is a large enterprise. So that was a real big thing that we've seen, and I think we will continue to see as political unrest and the world changes and all of that. And what's really interesting is just kind of looking at the big players, right? And I thought this was really interesting, and I kind of nerd out on this stuff, so I know I'm alone in all that, but there was the Microsoft, it was a digital defense report that they published not too long ago, and I mean it's not a quick read, but the basic gist of it was that the insight that they shared on the activities of these nation state cyber criminals and how their attack patterns are evolving, right? And that really helps offer a look at what to expect this year and in the year to come. So what I thought was really interesting is that, and this may not be a big surprise, but with like 58% of all nation state attacks in this past year were launched by Russian nation state actors, right? There's a lot of political unrest and what's going on in Ukraine. They're becoming increasingly effective in their attacks. And they had like a 21% success rate in 2020, and now they have a 32% success rates in 2021, and of course that's increasing. So again, it's just
Scary stuff. It's very
well,
scary.
it is, and there's so many different ways that, I mean, we all think we're like, oh, a Russian, like a Ukraine or a Russian, nation state war centric cyber attack, or I'm not going to click on anything, an email I get about that. Well, what about the charities, right?
Right.
Save the turtles in the Ukraine.
Yeah. Yeah. Any of that. And, the thing is, I think also, I think a big thing that a lot of SMBs think is, well, nobody from Russia, China, North Korea, Iran is going to care about my business. Well, they don't know how big or small you are. I mean, they're targeting anything that they can get into. They're just looking for where the vulnerabilities are and where they can get their hands into something. And so they don't look at it from that perspective. I mean, they see an address, an IP address, and so those are the type of things that we have to help those prospective clients understand, that yes, these big threats from these nation states are real and can happen to you.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great analogy. It's not like they're shopping and saying, okay, so I want all the grocery stores in Maine, right? No, like you said, they're just looking at IP addresses. So outside of the 58% that is coming from Russia, you've got North Korea, Iran, China, South Korea, Turkey, which was a new entrant into the big players on the scene there, and for a small percentage, Vietnam, right? So and the thing that they're all targeting, though, is that they're all targeting enterprises, right? I mean, the majority of them are. So it's like 79% is targeting enterprises.
Yep.
Businesses of all size in any industry. So the next big thing that we saw was spoofing and brand fraud. And I think it was in Q4 of 2021, DHL was the top brand that was spoofed, which made sense, right? Because everybody was in lockdown, and DHL is a global brand that's like the global Amazon, right? So just taking into account the rest of the world, DHL was like the top brand that was phished because everybody was getting stuff delivered. So that has changed now. And, the Verizon, another great report, not an easy read or not a short read, but it's a fantastic report, the Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report. Lots of great stats, lots of great information, but they, in their 2021 report, they talk about the rapid rise in brand impersonation, because trusted brands are just that, they're trusted, right? And these attacks, they clocked in 15 times higher in 2021 than they did in 2020. And so, why do we care about that is, your clients, employees, all of us, we encounter these threats frequently. It's over 25% of all branded emails that we all receive are spoofed or brand impersonation attempts. So as you can see here was financial is always a big one that gets spoofed. I think it's the 6 brands in the top 20. You have financial services, and then Facebook, right? Dominates spoofing for social media, and Microsoft. Microsoft is the second most impersonated brand in phishing attacks and the #1 most impersonated cloud brand. How often? Well, outside of those of us that have to deal with Microsoft issues, everybody trusts Microsoft, right? Automatically. And I'll be the first one to say that, I one of the phishing emails that I fell for, one out of the 2, Adobe was the other one, but Microsoft was one of them. So, it happens to the best of us, to all of us. And this just goes to show, around the globe, the most trusted brands.
And
I look at that and I'm like, how many of those do I use? Do I recognize?
Right. Right. And they capitalize on catching you off guard, right? They capitalize on the fact that, there is a percentage of people that might be expecting something from Amazon. Of course, that one's a no-brainer. You just placed an order, all of a sudden you get an email and you don't think about it. Other ones, though, you might have just heard in the news that, something was happening with this vendor or that vendor. And then you get this email and it just catches you off guard and you click on it. And I guess how they impersonate it, they become so sophisticated at making sure that they look so brand that I'm sure even their own communications departments are surprised by how well they've done in impersonating them.
Yeah, and like we at ID Agent, we talk about, the dark web being, it's run like a business, and there's so many different facets to that. They have one of the most well-funded marketing and graphics departments in the world, as any other department in the criminal enterprise. But they hold like contests for graphic designers to design and imitate brands perfectly.
Yeah.
And they can fund all those contests, right? And if you're someone who doesn't have many job opportunities in the country that you're in, but you are an amazing graphic designer, right? It's kind of a no-brainer. So
exactly.
The evolution of ransomware is another something that was a big kind of trend. Cyber criminals have evolved their ransomware tactics, the targets and the technology, right? Just to make everybody, you make it a good year for them, but a bad year for everyone else. So manufacturing and industry were the big ones, right? We saw a lot of attacks that were focused on manufacturing, especially in like COVID, vaccines, supply chain disruption, industry, infrastructure, the pipeline project, right? The water treatment facility, all of these different ones. So 80% of organizations in these sectors reported that they experienced a ransomware attack in 2021. So, if you're an MSP and you've got clients that are prospects, you're talking to prospects in these industries, these are great things to show them and share with them. Great report, be like, hey, look, it's not just me telling you this stuff, right? You guys, don't take my word for it. Here's an entire report and probably 17 different other ones that I could show you that talk about, you guys are our target, you're a risk. And so the infrastructure, right? The FBI, their Internet Crimes Complaint Center, they reported that U.S. organizations in 14 of 16 critical infrastructure categories experienced at least one ransomware attack in 2021. Again, right? So like huge numbers. There are targets. And it's going to continue to. I wish I could say it wasn't, but it looks like it's only going to continue to ramp up, right? Again, the FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center, they put out a report, and FBI analysts disclosed that the IC3, the Internet Crime Complaint Center, received more than 2,000 ransomware complaints with more than 16 million in losses. Right. Wow. And that's a 20% increase in reported losses compared to the same time period in 2020. Right. And the United States, since 2020, the United States has incurred 127% increase in the number of ransomware attacks, while the UK exhibited a 233% surge in ransomware infections. So, yeah.
Big business. It's huge.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. And it goes back to like cybercrime as a service. All this stuff is just
Right.
easier and easier for any, Tom or Harry to perpetrate.
Yeah.
Some industries, they got hit harder than others. Banking and finance, I think that's always going to be a favorite, right? They got hammered Q1 and Q2 of 2021. And I think it was like a 1,318% increase in the number of ransomware attacks that was waged against that sector. I mean, it's like that, the number is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I mean, that the attacks kind of petered off towards the last half of the year. I don't know why, but I mean, just the attacks in the first half was enough to cripple the industry. And interestingly enough, financial services again is also the most impersonated industry in phishing attacks too. So we saw that, we talked about that, but it's kind of that's kind of been financial banking has kind of been the sweet spot for threat actors, but they're just they're expanding, and more ransom is being paid. The demands have been rising. These guys are there when they have your files locked up, right? They look at what you can afford in insurance payments, and that's what they ask for because they know that you can afford it. So regardless, again, of the size of the business, they know what you can pay, and that's the number that they're going to ask for. So I think the average ransomware, the average paid ransomware, I think it increased by like 82% or some insane number like that. It was we've got a new record of like $570,000 is the average amount.
Incredible. I mean, you just look at how they've become a much more matured, I hate to call it an industry, but it is an industry. And it's become a very matured industry that they look at ways in which they improve their businesses, and it's how they succeed at it.
Yep, definitely. So data breaches, the cost has gone up the highest in nearly 2 decades. That's something that we've been talking about. It's the costs are going to continue to rise. And phishing, right? Another hot topic. I think phishing is the #1 star of the show in the cyber criminal arsenal. It's been the reigning champion of data breach risks for like 3 consecutive years in a row, right? It's easy, right. It's cheap, it's versatile, and they have a whole legion of graphic designers to make their emails look exactly like Microsoft or Facebook or whatever, right? So, and phishing, human error really is still the driving force behind like an overwhelming majority of these cybersecurity problems. 1 in 3 employees are likely to click a link in a phishing email, and it's mostly due to like lack of awareness and education at the end of the day, if I had to pick one. So there was a recent survey that and I forgive me, I don't remember who did it, and I can look it up if someone really needs to know. But so like the 2 main reasons that people cite for like clicking on a phishing email is, one, like the perceived legitimacy, right? We've got these great brand impersonation, but employees have like this fear, FOMO, right? Fear of missing out on an important message, and that fear of missing out on the important message is like stronger than the fear of getting malware or causing a cybersecurity incident. So that FOMO is very strong. And then like 45% of employees, they click on emails they consider to be suspicious just in case it's important. Right.
Well, I found it interesting. The 41% of employees failed to notice a phishing message because they were tired. You take a look at that. I mean, we're working harder and harder, but we're also many are still working from home. So you're jumping back and forth between home and work life. It's this intermix, and I think the world is exhausted. And you click on something and bam. And the fact that they put more into wanting to make sure they didn't miss something than the potential threat itself is that's shocking and scary at the same time.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's a conversation that we could have on a whole other topic, and that to me, that says there's a culture, right? There needs to be more a culture that promotes cybersecurity over like punitive, right? And that goes back to like carrot and the stick. Again, each organization is different, and I'm not one to tell you how anyone should run their business. But I think at the end of the day, that kind of is what it boils down to. So I pulled these stats out of Bullfish ID, which is our security awareness and compliance training platform. It's our tool. And I thought, so this is very telling right here, right? So if you can see, there's kind of like a little bit of a theme going on there, right? What are the brands that you see? FedEx, Office 365, right? Google, right? Again, trusted brands. And, so, the ones that phishing simulation campaigns that are getting people to submit credentials. COVID is still something that caused people to worry. But then, outside of that, it's trusted brands, FedEx and Office 365, right? So, it just like analyzing these results of, the thousands of phishing resistance training sessions and phishing simulations that were done in Bullfish ID in the last year, it illustrates the degree to which phishing is an ongoing challenge to conquer. And it's exactly because of some of the things you mentioned, Dan, right? The always on mentality, right? Was it like three quarters of everyone of people, employees, they're responding to emails outside of office hours, right? And while doing other things, right? On the subway, or hopefully not driving, but if you're in the passenger seat, then, right? Stress and distractions and lack of education awareness. Those are the top three things that are impacting that. But I thought that this was really, really telling, because we've, the education, and I say this kind of generally, and just from talking to other MSPs and being in the channel myself, we talk about this stuff so much. We're like, oh, everybody should know this, but they don't. And here's another one that I thought was really interesting and took me by surprise. So the number one industry where employees fell for the bait in a phishing simulation. You see what the number one, see what that is? I was like, my people, what is going on here?
Right. Exactly. Those that should know should know.
But again, it just goes back to the fact that no one is immune, and it's the complexity, the sophistication of these things, and the level of distraction, the blurring of the lines between personal and work, and even for those of us in IT who eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff.
How many of us might be sitting on the couch doing work, binge watching the latest, series that's out there while you're opening and cleaning up your emails? I mean, hey, I think we're all guilty, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm so bad. I like wake up and first thing in the morning after I shut my alarm off, I'm checking one eye and bleary. I'm checking my email.
Right.
Now I'm like,
exactly.
So some kind of fun stats to share, right? Mondays and Tuesdays, top day for phishing. 78% of phishing attacks occur on weekdays. Mondays and Thursdays are the top days for Facebook phishing, right? So if you think about, if I think about what I've been told for the best days to post on social media, right, to get the most attention, Tuesdays and Thursdays, great days, right? Also the top days for Facebook phishing.
Yeah,
And Thursdays and Fridays are the top days for Microsoft phishing because it's the end of the week. Everybody's tired. They're done. They're just, they're ready. They're already thinking about, Friday nights, happy hour.
exactly.
Hey, I am too. So, and wait, it's only
Exactly.
Tuesday.
Well,
Yeah.
it is Tuesday, so it is a top fishing day. So be aware.
Yep, absolutely. So, and then of course, the dark web. The dark web, it's growing. There's more and more data. As of May in 2022, there was like over 3 million active users per day, and that's like doubled from like January of 2020. You can buy pretty much anything and everything. We know that, right? Cyber criminals, nobody wants to work harder than they have to. So, they're always in the market for credentials that can help them do phishing or, really any attack. So I just thought that was what I thought was interesting here is that, on the dark web, and this is just what we've been able to like catalog, right? Think about everything that we haven't been able to.
Right.
We know so far is that it hosts an estimated 30,000 dark web websites. And again, that's just the sites that we know of. So, and these are just like a quick snapshot of what services and commodities sell for on the dark web. So if you look at that, like credit card details, account balance, and up to $5,000, it's $120.
And it's amazing too, just how, again, I hate to continue to use the word sophisticated, but how sophisticated they become and turn this into big business where you're going to purchase some credit card details, and they will focus on upselling you to say, well, would you like to receive the billing address information as well? Click here to add that component on, right? So we're not talking about amateurs. We're talking about people that have grown and matured this business into a big serious business.
Yep. Yeah. And just kind of to continue with that same point, right? More data, right? More data. These are all the things, the percentage of the breaches in which these types of PII credentials, medical data, bank data, IP, which I'm going to make a little bit of a prediction and say that when we do this same report next year, I'm guessing that IP percentage is going to be much larger.
Right.
Because that's what nation state threat actors are going after is IP. So, yes, we are still talking about passwords.
Can you believe that? I mean, I look at this list and I mean, you just think, as my daughter would say, she says, what? Like, really? How can this be?
Yes, this would be a Whiskey Tango Foxtrot statement.
Yes,
yes.
Absolutely.
So it's like the average organization is now likely to have 17 sets of login details exposed on the dark web, right? There's like 15 billion unique logins that are circulating out on the dark web. The credentials of like over 130,000 C-level Fortune, 1,000 executives are out on the dark web. We've seen a 430% increase in the number of corporate login details with plain text passwords.
Yeah.
So if nothing else,
Yeah.
I know we have to hammer a lot of stuff into our client's head, but this is one that I think we all as IT professionals struggle with the most. For the love of God.
Right.
There's freemium password managers out there, right? Yeah. Don't want to pay for one, at least have something.
And we had a client that we did a search on the dark web with ID Agent, and we found that the owner of this company, it's a financial planner, his credentials were out there on the dark web. Come to find out that it was a dating type site that his credentials were on.
Yeah.
And in this case, we found out that the password that was being used was legitimate. And it was the same password that he uses for all their line of business in their organization. But additionally, it was his business email address that was used for this personal site, right? And what he does in his personal time, is none of our business. I mean, whatever, it's none of our concern what the client does. But the fact that he used his business email and used the same password that he uses for all of his line of business was just astonishing. And, so we were able to identify this and help to educate them about using different passwords for every single site. And they were shocked when we said, because they told us that there were 40 to 50 line of business sites that this password was used on. And you think about the incredible amount of risk that they were up against, and that they were that was put forth here. And it's scary, very scary. And you should never assume that any client, it doesn't matter, whether you think they're the smartest in the room, smartest in the world. Some people, you don't know what you don't know. And some people just aren't educated and don't think twice about it. And I think often we are more, we try to make things more convenient for us. And the more convenient we make things for us, the more convenient we make things for hackers that are out there. And if it's a pain to have to put in a different password, every single site you go to, that means you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and look, these are the things that I used to tell my clients. It's a pain for me too, right? I don't enjoy, having to, create a unique, password that I can never remember without the help of a password manager.
Right.
I'm going through the same pain that you are.
Yep.
Right. It's like wearing a seatbelt now, for the love of
Right.
God. Right. It is what it is. So, I in a conversation that I would have with clients and prospects, and now with the MSPs that I work with and talk to, and they're like, well, my clients are looking to trim, security spending, and so they ask me, is a service like dark web monitoring really all that important, or necessary? And honestly, I mean, those of us and look, me too. Like, I talk dark web all day, every day, right? And it's really easy for us to kind of get apathetic to the fact, oh, we've heard it's dark web. Blah, blah, blah. Yes, well, I mean, it is for us, right? But not so much for clients. And it's up to us to kind of help, with analogies or stories or education, why having dark web monitoring is important, because changing times have made security measures I don't know, I would say all security measures are important, but dark web monitoring is one of the ones that is necessary, and it's not just a nice to have, but it's a must have. And bad actors, they have access to much more data than they used to, and it increases the chance that your client's company's credentials or other sensitive data are exposed. And I know that there's a lot of other companies that do that now, and so monitoring, while it's not the same razzle dazzle that it used to be, it's still, even if for nothing else, as part of like your sales process or your upsell process, right? Really showing and painting a picture of that risk, so that when your client come back to you and say, we got good password hygiene, we don't, reuse passwords, my employees, they know enough, they're okay. Oh, really? Okay, well, you may be right, but let's check, shall we? So, regardless if you don't use ID Agent, at least use something. I personally like ID Agent because of our prospecting tool, and nothing, gets that emotional hook better than being able to run that prospecting report. And it's worked for me. It's worked for, God, how long have we been in the channel now? 2017, 2018, and the thousands of MSP partners that swear by using the prospecting tool to get their foot in the door and sell the rest of their MSP services. So,
and if we had not done that scan, that dark web scan for that client I was mentioning, I just think about where the potential liabilities that there could have been for them, for us, for everybody. I mean, they essentially, should disaster had struck them, could have gone out of business. And and it's just, you think, okay, we found that you have a password out there. Yeah, sure, there's nothing you can do about it being out there, but then you can take action going forward, and that's what's most important. It might be reactionary at that point, but you take the steps to educate and ensure that they do have proper protocols in place, and you're saving them, you're saving yourself.
Yeah, and if you also use Network Detective Pro, in the reports in Network Detective Pro, it will tell you, if you also have dark web ID, it'll tell you any compromises that dark web ID identify in Network Detective Pro. It'll tell you if that password that in that compromise that's been identified, if it is a password that the end user has changed yet, or if it's a new password.
Oh, nice.
Right. Yeah. So that additional, it kind of saves you that step, because if it's an old password that, they've already changed, cool. But if it's not, then that's, that goes right up to the top of the high alert list. So, but I was hoping that I would make this shorter, but we get together and we could talk about this forever. So, almost to the end here, the last little bit, want to talk about, okay, we've hit on the highlights. We've talked about what, the trends that we saw in this last year, and now what's next, right? And while it's hard to predict exactly, what will come next, geopolitical factors, economics, right, technology, they'll all play a role in, shaping cybercrime tomorrow and into the future. However, I mean, what we can say is that, there's some certain things that we're going to want to keep an eye on, that are going to, play an important role and be something that's going to could potentially be a big issue, right? Cybercrime as a service, that it's played a major role in escalating cybercrime rates, and that's going to continue to keep rolling this year and into the next. It's I think it's 90% of posts on the dark web forums are from buyers looking to contract someone for hacking or other cybercrime services. And a high level of activity like this adds competition in the space, resulting in lower prices. Right, so the attacks are going to get more sophisticated, and the done for you aspect, the costs are going to go down, making it even more lucrative, even more appealing to anybody. Bad actors can farm out phishing operations through a subscription service for as little as $800 a month, and imagine the return on that, right? Contracting out for a US targeted high quality ransomware campaign in 2021. It cost a little under $2,000, but that price has dropped to $1,700 in I think it was January of 2022, right? Because more cyber criminals are entering the space. The competition goes up, prices go down. So the evolution of this industry will continue to make cybercrime easier for the bad guys and defense harder for the rest of us. So that's one of the big ones to pay attention to. High supply chain risk. We've seen a lot of this going on. Again, booming dark web data markets ensure cyber criminals will be hunting for fresh stores of data, and they'll be targeting business services companies and other service providers or suppliers to find the data that they need, right? Supply chains also offer bad actors pathways to conduct backdoor attacks on larger organizations, right? Nation state actors, they're doing this. They've seen this, which is, it's a boon to both garden variety and nation states cyber criminals alike. There was the most recent, it's the most recent threat landscape report that is put out by the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity. And in their report, they noted that nation state threat actors conducted at least 17 known supply chain attacks between 2020 and 2021. And that constituted more than like 50% of the attacks that they recorded. So this agency, they broke down the supply chain attacks that they recorded in 2021. So that offered them a glimpse into what businesses are likely to face in the future. And so these are just the two of the tops, right? So 66% of attacks focused on obtaining supplier code, and 58% of attacks aim to access data, IP data, right? And nation state cyber attacks. We talked about that. We talked about why the shift from government to small business, the supply chain implication in all that. And, I wish I had like so you should do this and it'll stop, but there's things that you can put in place, and just, all of us need to recognize that, all businesses, all of us are a target for these big, very well-funded cyber criminals, right? And these state-backed actors will be increasingly involved in revenue-generating cyber intrusions in 2022. Because they're doing these things to generate income for their country. I think what was it, like North Korea? They generated like $1 billion from cybercrime in 2021. That's that's kind of a no-brainer for them, and they're going after MSPs too. We're not immune.
One to many, right?
One to many, yes. So yeah, nice being an organization that has a giant target on your back.
Right. It just makes our jobs as our job out there as MSPs even more challenging, and all the more reason for us to make sure that we have the right tools in place, that we stay educated, and that that we are as relentless about securing our clients as the hackers are relentless about trying to attack.
Yeah. I mean, and look, it's a fundamental list of things that you can and should be doing, right? Obviously, ID Agent, we don't provide all of these. So I'm not, I'm not just, tooting my own horn here, but there's fundamental things that, absolutely should be doing, right? And it's not rocket science here. Security awareness training, email security, phishing, anti-phishing, patch and update, patch and update, zero trust, and monitoring for credential compromise. Not anything that anybody has not heard of, or should not be like, life altering. Oh my God, right? Fundamental. What ID Agent does, we have security and compliance awareness training. We provide a tool that's built for MSPs, by MSPs. Our goal is to be the know before of the channel, only with a tool designed for MSPs to support their smaller clients, right? It's all of the training and phishing kits. It's the entire library of resources are included. It doesn't cost extra. It's customizable. You can create videos to send out. Doesn't have to be around security. It could be, like sexual harassment, or the top 5 tips for using SharePoint, or how to connect your printer, whatever, right? It's in 8 languages. We've got, compliance, HIPAA, PCI, DSS, GDPR, and more. And it's also gives you the ability to set up a personalized user portal for your clients' employees, right? So if you're thinking, if you think about like the good, better, best packages, if you do that, right? So the good security package could be, dark web monitoring. The better could be dark web monitoring and security and phishing training. And then best could be dark web monitoring, security and compliance and phishing, and your own customized portal.
Yeah.
There's lots of different things that you can do. And full metrics reporting on all of it, and dark web ID, right? I always say this, we'll continue to say this, we're the first dark web monitoring company in the channel. We're born in the government space. We still continue to, as a legacy client, we still continue to support an entire branch of the US government. It's the same tool that you get access to, that you use to provide, actionable threat intelligence for your clients. The prospecting tool, same thing, Office of Personnel Management is using. So, that it's an invaluable tool, especially the prospecting tool. I stand by the fact that it was a game changer for me in getting my foot in the door to sell the rest of my MSP services. So,
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it really is, we have been the industry leader and best in breed for many reasons, and will continue to do so. So, no, we're getting to the top of the hour, and I recently got over bronchitis, so as you can tell, my voice is starting to get a little Janis Joplin, a little cigar and whiskey. Not that there's anything wrong with that, and not that I don't, every once in a while, but not recently. So just going to pop up if anybody is interested in scheduling a demo, or would like more information, or would like pricing on, Bullfish ID, dark web ID, any of that, you can take advantage, and we can get back to you with that now. If not, I will put up my contact information here in just a minute, while we're letting people select that if they want to take advantage. There's some content downloads. Please go and download our global year in breach report. Share it with your prospects, share it with your clients. There's also, we have a buyer's guide for dark web monitoring, right? Again, you don't have to use ours, but use something that's good and that is going to provide all of the things that you need. So there's, that's a report that you can download, and I can pop those in the chat for anyone who is still on.
And the critical thing is just staying on top of it, and never letting go in when it comes to education and keeping these tools out there, because curiosity may have killed the cat, but complacency kills the business. And if you become complacent with what you're providing for your clients, it's only going to put them at risk. And that's not what we're here for, right? We're here to keep our clients safe and secure and educated. So complacency, unfortunately, there's no place for it in our business. And we have to stay on top of it day in, day out.
So there's my contact information. Email me, connect with me on LinkedIn. And thank you, everyone, for letting me, stat you to death. No, but I, share the results of this report. And I tried to keep it not too painful. Hopefully, I was, provided a lot of anecdotal information. Oh, the links aren't working. Interesting. I don't know why. Okay, so Vince, I can, if you want to just shoot me your email, I can just send you a quick email with those links, or you can go to the idagent.com website under resources. It's there as well. You should be able to find it's like the first 2 or 3 reports.
And I did just put in I just put both links into my browser and they both did come up. I just copied and pasted them. But we can also, Vince, we can also include them. We'll be sending out an email that will include the replay information. So we'll make sure we include those links for everyone in that email.
Yep. Yep. All right. Thanks for letting us know, Vince. Appreciate it. All right.
Yeah. Very good. Amelia, as always, I thank you for your time. I love talking with you about this stuff. You're a wealth of knowledge, and it's just great to hear some of this new information out there. Never stop fighting. Keep it out there. Keep the fight going.
Thank you very much, Dan. Thanks for having me today. Thanks for, going through this with me. I always appreciate all the value that you bring and chatting with you. And you got to get out sometime, man.
Yes, I have to get out of these four walls. So I hope to see you sometime soon. And with that being said, I hope you have good travel. Stay safe. Everybody, thank you for being here with us today. We appreciate your time, and we will talk to you all soon. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.